Technique.
In the Scandinavian Spey Cast, I use a very small rotation, and I try to keep this as close to the body as possible. I kind of use the expression, hug the rod, because in this way you'll keep the rotation way in here. And if you have the rotation in here very close to your body, you'll have a very high line speed. And you hardly move yourself, you hardly move the rod. But if I want to increase this speed, I don't do it by stretching out my arms. I actually do it by using my body. Let me show you how that is done. If I had to throw this stone and only used my arm, I would be able to send this stone quite far. But if I really wanted to cast it even further, I had to use the body. And I would pull my body back, my arm back, and then generate a lot more power and throwing the stones way further out. In all sports, it's very important to use the body if you want to generate power. If you're a golf player, the body is actually the one that makes a swing. If you're a boxer and you want to do this deadly punch called the left hook, you'll go in and pull it up with the body like this and hitting it. The same thing you can actually use in fly fishing. Not the left hook though, but you can generate a lot of power into your cast by actually moving the body back and forth. Let me show you how. By taking one step forward, I can actually use the body to generate power now. I still keep the small rotation though, but I put my body weight back on my left foot. By having it on my left foot, when I've done my backward cast and I'm ready to go forward, then before I start the rotation, I actually just pull the body weight from my left foot back to my right foot. And in this way here, I actually put a lot of tightness into the rod. I actually load it quite deeper. And I have not even started the rotation yet. And in this way here, you can use the rod much more, and you can generate much more power. The same thing also happens when you're using a single hand rod. You also have a small rotation going back and forth. Let me show you that. If I'm doing a short cast with a single hand rod, I place my right foot in front of me, and I have a very small rotation here, just casting straight forward. And this way here, I have a lot of precision on my cast, and I do a very small rotation. But if I want to do like a longer cast, I want to keep the same rotation here, but I want to transport that back and forth. I do that by taking my right foot backwards and having my left foot in front of me. So when you want to do the longer cast, of course you use the left hand to do the double haul, because that can add energy. But you can also add some energy by transferring your body weight from your left back to your right. What you want to keep the small rotation here. You don't want to stretch your arm back and forth like this, because that will actually create a big loop and will not really create any tension to the rod. But by keeping it in here and just having the small rotation here, but taking that back and forth by transporting that body back and forth, you see you get much more tension into the rod and you'll be able to send the line far out.
Henrik prefers to use a double-handed rod and tube fly. Modern double-handed rods don't weigh very much, they're easy to cast, and it's much easier to fish the fly and fight a salmon with a double-handed rod. If Henrik uses a single-handed rod, it's most likely when he's hitching or fishing with a dry fly. Here, for instance, he's trying for 2 salmon, which didn't show the slightest interest in his tube fly. Unfortunately, they have no interest in his dry fly either.
One of the significant differences in the traditional Spey Cast and the Scandinavian Spey Cast is the way you handle the rod. In the traditional Spey Cast, you kind of move the rod with your right hand. You kind of push it forward. And by pushing it forward, you actually transport the rod forward. You also open up the loop. In the Scandinavian Spey Cast, you kind of use the power from the left hand instead. So that means when you go back here, you don't push the right hand forward. You actually pull with the left hand instead. You can also say by hugging the rod in here, you have a much smaller movement. So what I do in the Scandinavian Spey Cast is like pulling it back here and then just using the left hand going forward. I have a very small movement and I generate a lot of power, hardly using any energy. Let me explain you why. Imagine this is my rod now. I would like to generate a high speed on the top of the rod because that also determines the speed of the line coming out. The best part of the rod is the lower part because this is the thick part and this is where all the power is. If we look at the way they move the traditional Spey Cast, they use it with the right hand. they kind of push the rod back and forth. And that means you have to work very hard with the right heel here to really increase the speed on the top of the rod. Also by doing this movement here, you actually move the best part of the rod, which is this one down here. You move that back and forth. You're not really using it. The Scandinavian way is different. We kind of use the left hand to cast with instead. You could say like we use 70% on the left hand and 30% on the upper hand. The upper hand is still active, but most of the rotation is done far down on the rod. And by having the rotation far down on the rod, you can by small efforts here do a very high speed. And also the thing is, you use the bottom part of the rod now to cast with, which is much more powerful than the top of the rod. Casting with a single hand rod, you want to bring your left foot in front of you, having the right foot back, because then you can rotate the body back and forth, bring the rotation back and forth. But casting with a double hand rod, this is not an option, because if your feet is placed like this, and you want to bring the line back to a D in a Spey cast, that means actually you're going to bring the line back and into the forest, which is of course is not good. Why does this happen? Well, if your feet is placed like this, then you can take your body like this. You can see then you can swing the body all the way around. And this is why you bring the line into the forest. You need to have one foot in front of the other one to make the rotation back and forth. So if you take the right foot in front of you here, when you're on this side of the river, that means you can only swing your body to here. Then it locks. So that means when you do your lift, you actually lift the line up and bring it out over the water. And then you lock the body here, and then you can cast. You can see then I have the direction I want here to do my forward cast. This is very important to place like when you're on this side of the river, having the right foot in front of you. When you're on the other side of the river, then it's mirror turn, then you have the left foot in front of you. When you set yourself up for the cast on this side of the river, then you need to have the right foot placed according to where you want to cast. So that means if I pick a line up from here and I want to cast there, then I put my right foot in the direction I want to cast, because then I can transport the body back and forth like this. Let me show this to you. So if I want to cast across here, I put my right foot towards my target. Put my left foot back, because in this way here, I can move the body back and forth. So when I pick up the line, I twist my body downstream, picking up the line. And when I go back here, I take the body back to my left foot. And when I go forward, I take it forward over the right foot, also taking the rotation that way. This way here, I can transport the rotation back and forth. You pick up like this, go back, put the line there, and go forward again, and shooting it out.